On today's show, the Nets battle but drop a heartbreaker to the Celtics during a double overtime thriller at Barclays Center. I'll offer my top takeaways from the game on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping Brooklyn's 130-126 double overtime loss to the Boston Celtics on Friday at Barclays Center. And this was a wild game. There's a lot to take away from this game. This was the Nets' first double OT game since 2021 and the first at Barclays Center since 2018. And it's a game that they looked like they were out of. They were down by 10 with 3 minutes left. They battled back. They were down by 4 in overtime. They battled back again, and it looked like they were finally going to come away with a win, and a really high-level win against a good team, probably their best win of the season since their last win over the Celtics at TD Garden. And then a fatal miscommunication cost them the game at the end of the first overtime. It went into a second overtime, and then the Celtics come away with it. But just recapping what happened, they were down 10 with 3 minutes left. You think the game's over? Like the Nets were up early. The Celtics came back. They took control of this game. The Nets are coming off a 54-point loss. You think they might roll over, and they don't. They fight back. Nick Claxton scores a putback dunk with like a second left to force overtime. Then they're down 4 with 2 minutes left in OT. You think, okay, the Celtics are going to run away with this. It's over again. And they don't. They battle back. Noah Clowney has one of probably the best two-way sequence of his career. The Nets are down by 2 with a minute left. Jaylen Brown drives to his left. Noah Clowney comes around the lane as a low man, swats the shot, goes back down the other end in transition, and drains a 3 to give the Nets the lead with 40 seconds left in overtime. Probably the best two-way sequence of Noah Clowney's career. The Nets then look like they're going to win. They're up by 1. They get the ball. Nolan Traore, who I'm going to get a lot more into later, had a very nice game, but he gets fouled. He misses the second free throw. So the Nets are up 2 with about 2 seconds left. And then they have a miscommunication, and they give Hugo Gonzalez, the Celtics rookie, a wide open 3 in the corner with 2 seconds left. He drains it with 0.4 seconds left. That forces overtime, and then the Nets a double overtime, and then the Nets lose in double overtime. So the story of the game is going to be the Nets battling back, obviously, but it's going to be this Hugo Gonzalez 3 that, he drains in improbable fashion. Like, you just cannot give up a 3 in that situation, up 3 with 2 minutes left. So I'm going to get into that. But overall, the Nets were down. They battled. They had a really high-level clutch performance, I would say, or not high-level clutch performance, but high-level overall performance from Nolan Traore in this one. And he got his first, I'd say, clutch experience against a really good team. They had some other guys show some good things, coming off a 54-point loss in Madison Square Garden, and they come away with a loss, which is obviously good for the Nets for the tank purposes. So it was a good night from that standpoint, but I think that this miscommunication and this Hugo Gonzalez 3 really puts kind of a damper on the night, because it was just a fatal breakdown from the Nets that you just can't have. And what happened was the Celtics came out. There was a timeout with 2 seconds left. The Nets came out. We talked to MPJ. We talked to Jordy Fernandez about it after the game. And the Nets came out in a zone defense. And their plan was they had drawn up during the timeout. They were going to zone up the 3-point line, which makes sense because you're up 3 with 2 seconds left. So you're going to zone up the 3-point line. You're not going to allow any 3-point shots. And then the Celtics came out in a different set than what the Nets were expecting. So because of that, the Nets got a little confused. The Nets expected them to come out and be kind of around the 3-point line. And instead, they were all in the middle of the floor, and they kind of set up a different play than the Nets were anticipating. So Michael Porter Jr. said that the Nets had some confusion. Like, some of them went to a man defense. Some of them stayed in the matchup zone defense around the 3-point line. And because of that, you had Hugo Gonzalez kind of wrapped around into the strong side corner on the side that the Celtics were inbounding from. And MPJ didn't pick it up. And then Noah Clowney, it looks like, was supposed to be the guy who picks him up. But Noah Clowney stayed kind of in his quadrant of the 3-point line near the break. And then Hugo Gonzalez gets a wide open corner 3, and that ties the game. And then the Celtics end up winning. So that's just a miscommunication that you can't have in any circumstances. Like, giving up a wide open corner 3 in that situation, about as bad and about as embarrassing of a breakdown that you're going to see. And, MPJ said after the game that, it's unacceptable, obviously. Like, you just can't have that. And while I think overall, like, this night kind of went how you would want it to for the Nets in terms of they played well, they battled, you got some rookies doing good things, some other guys doing good things, and you still come away with a loss for tanking purposes, this is a pretty bad stain to have. It's one game. It's not that big of a deal, but like to have players, like you have two starters involved in that exchange in Michael Porter Jr. and Noah Clowney. You have a coach in Jordi Fernandez, who a lot of people obviously think is a very high-level coach, and I still think he is. But for Jordi not to have the players, kind of ironclad on what they're doing in that situation, to have a veteran like MPJ and a third-year player like Noah Clowney, both of which are starters, and to have them miscommunicate on that and to give a guy a wide open three in the corner, it's low IQ by everybody involved. And it's a really bad breakdown. And, it cost the Nets the game. And obviously, like, that's not the worst thing given what the Nets' agenda is this season, but it's not a great thing that you want to see in terms of the Nets battled. This is a game that they put themselves in a position to win, and then they lose it because of a really dumb play like that. That's obviously going to be somewhat disheartening. But my main takeaway outside of that is that the Nets showed some serious grit in this game. I mean, they had, as I said, a rookie in Nolan Traore show encouraging flashes, and they came away with the loss. And that's a pretty good night, all things considered, if you take away that big, Hugo miscommunication. But this is now 3 losses in a recent stretch that have just been pretty improbable losses by the Nets. And this is the first one that I would say is like really their fault. Like they had a miscommunication and a breakdown that led to the loss. But still, like Hugo Gonzalez hitting a 3 in that situation, most of the time that shot's not going to go in. So the Nets come away with a loss here, that's good for taking purposes. And then you look at 2 other recent losses. You have the Magic game where Paolo Banchero banks in the 3 at the top of the key. That's a loss that probably should have been a win for the Nets. You have the Pelicans loss where the Nets were up 3 with like a minute left, and Sadiq Bey hit a fadeaway 3 off a broken play as the shot clock was expiring. That tied the game, and the Pelicans go on to win this one. And now you have this with the Hugo Gonzalez 3. So that's 3 losses that probably should have been wins for the Nets. And for tanking purposes, like we saw last year, the Nets had one win where they had a putback. Nick Claxton had the putback against the 76ers at Wells Fargo Center, and that was the difference between the 76ers getting VJ Edgecombe and the Nets falling to the 8th pick. You're talking about now 3 losses for the Nets that should have been wins. And maybe for some fans that's frustrating, but those 3 losses, that could very well be the difference between the Nets getting a top pick and then not getting. So maybe for the first time in a while, there's some tanking karma or positive basketball karma going the Nets' way, at least in terms of their likelihood of getting one of these generational prospects in the coming draft. And you also look at it, the Pelicans and the Pacers won tonight. So the Nets gained some ground in the draft lottery standings, and they did it in a game that was very competitive against a good team. And you had a lot of positive things, as I said. And if you look at the draft lottery standings, let me pull it up right now. The draft lottery standings now, the Nets are at 12-31. They now have the same amount of wins as the Sacramento Kings, who are in 4th, and they have one more win than the Indiana Pacers and New Orleans Pelicans, who are in 2nd and 3rd. And the Pelicans, as I've said, they don't have any incentive to tank because they don't own their draft picks. And the Nets are continuing to creep up into the top 4, top 5, top 4, top 3 potentially of the draft lottery standings. You look at it, they have the worst record in the NBA in January. And despite that, they played a lot of competitive games. Like outside of obviously the Knicks loss at MSG, a lot of these games have been competitive. You have, that Grizzlies loss that they were winning at the end of that one. You have the Pelicans loss. You have that Magic loss. You have the loss to the Mavericks in Dallas. Like there's just been a lot of games that they've been competitive for the most part. They're getting a lot of rookies minutes, and they've come away with losses that are going to improve their odds of getting a generational prospect. So I think overall, like Nets fans should come away pretty happy with how things have been going as of late. I know that this is frustrating to see a miscommunication like that in a game like this and lose a game in that fashion. But overall, I think a good night for the Nets, all things considered. And one of the main reasons for that is Nolan Traore had the best game of his career tonight and got some really good experience in a clutch moment against a team like the Celtics. So what did we see from Nolan? What did we see from some of the other top Nets contributors in this game? I'll get into that when I continue Locked on Nets after a quick break. Guys, during basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Coming back from the break, continuing with today's Locked On Nets episode, recapping Brooklyn's double overtime loss to the Celtics. And I said, despite this being a loss, I think there was a lot of positives to take away from it. Obviously, the Nets draft position is going to be a priority every game, but outside of that, you're looking towards the rookies in most game. And tonight, there were two quiet rookies or three quiet rookies. Yegor Dioman and Drake Powell started this game. I'm going to get into them later. Danny Wolf played off the bench. The main story and the main rookie who really did anything serious in this game was Nolan Traore, who had a career-high 21 points to go with 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 7 of 13 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, and 5 of 6 from the free throw line. This was the best game of Nolan Traore's NBA career by far, and this came against the Celtics team that is the second best team in the Eastern Conference right now. It's one of the best teams in the NBA. They were missing a few guys with Derek White sideline, but still, Nolan Traore played against this team. They have a lot of guys who can do some good things defensively, obviously, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, some other guys, and Nolan, for the most part, handled the pressure and looked really good. I mean, the Nets, as I said, they clawed back in this game. They were down 10 with 3 minutes remaining. And Nolan Traore, from that point, he scored back-to-back buckets to put them down 6. So he showed a little bit of a clutch gene in this game. Now, he did have a bad turnover in overtime, and he also missed the free throw in overtime that gave the Celtics an opportunity to tie the game, which they obviously did. But he was 5 of 6 from the free throw line. And overall, I asked Jordy Fernandez after the game, what led to him closing with Nolan? What did he feel good about with him? And he just said Nolan's ability to touch the paint. And that's the thing that is Nolan's main skill. It's his superpower, as Jordy Fernandez would say. And I think we saw him getting downhill a lot in this game. He touched the paint a lot. He had some good spray outs, but he also had some good finishes. We saw some possessions where Nolan was getting downhill, kind of probing in the pick and roll, putting some defenders in jail, and then getting down and laying it in. We saw some floaters. We saw some other things. So I think we just saw Nolan scoring and looking comfortable scoring against a high-level team in the Boston Celtics, and we saw him get some clutch experience. And while he had a bad turnover, he had a missed free throw at the end of the game. I think that him getting that kind of experience and him showing this kind of comfort after, it must be said, he was coming off of his worst game of the season. He was scoreless with 3 turnovers during the 54-point loss to the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. So big bounce back effort from Nolan in a big spot, and he got some clutch minutes. So that is great to see. Other guys I want to talk about, Michael Porter Jr. and Nick Claxton, I think, were the other top 2 contributors for the Nets in this game. And MPJ, big bounce back performance from him. He had one of his worst games of the season against the Knicks. And tonight, he has 30 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 9 of 19 from the field, 4 of 12 from 3, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. And I think that this was just a pretty high-level performance from MPJ. His field goal percentage ends up at 9 of 19, but he took some really tough shots down the stretch that just didn't fall. But I think that it was a pretty high-level performance in terms of the processing. I thought that his looks, for the most part, were better in this game than they had been in previous games. I thought he did a good job rebounding. I thought that he did a good job facilitating. And overall, we've been talking about the knee thing with MPJ. He said it the morning of that Knicks game that he sprained his MCL, or a minor sprain against the Magic, when Paolo Banchero hit that game-winning shot that game. And since then, he said it's been a little bit sore. But I think tonight was the first game where it really looked like, to me, that he was kind of back to 100%. And he looked like himself in terms of, his intentionality as a cutter, him getting downhill, him putting pressure on the rim, his ability to cut in some of that stuff. And I asked him after the game, where is he at with that knee? How is it feeling? And he said that, he heard it in that Magic game, but it wasn't anything that was going to keep him from playing. There was no structural damage. It wasn't something where he was at risk of further injury. It was just soreness. So he was going to keep playing. And he said that tonight, that it felt like it was kind of one of the first games where it feels like it's back to 100%, and he fully felt like himself. And I think that was evident on the court and from the performance. So good performance from MPJ. And Nick Claxton also, very high-level performance from him in this game. He had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, no turnovers, 8 of 13 from the field, So he did some good things offensively. Like he had the game-tying putback dunk with 2 seconds remaining in regulation. So that was nice. He did some other good things. Took care of the ball, finished around the rim. He attacked Neemias Queta and some of the other Celtics bigs, Luka Garza, on some plays and finished. But I think defensively was the biggest thing that stuck out to Nick Claxton. This game was kind of a reminder of some of the things that Nick Claxton can do defensively, because he was switched on to Jaylen Brown for a lot of the game. There were some possessions where he just started on Jaylen Brown outright, and he gave Jaylen Brown fits for most of this game. Jaylen was 9 of 27 from the field. Jaylen finished with 27 points on 27 shots. He did have 12 assists, so high-level playmaking game from him. But Nick Claxton was on Jaylen Brown for a lot of possessions in this game, and you just saw it. You saw his length. You saw his mobility. You saw all of those things that he can do defensively as a perimeter defender. You saw it bothering Jaylen Brown, and I think that it made a really big difference. But with the Nets paying so much attention to Jaylen Brown, Nick Claxton doing a good job on him, some other guys did get off. And, I would point to Peyton Pritchard. My goodness, Peyton Pritchard had 32 points, 13 of 24 from the field, 6 of 11 from 3, 4 assists, and 1 turnover. That dude is serious. I think everybody knows that at this point, but I'm just so impressed by Peyton Pritchard. I know it's a Nets podcast, but I got to just say that dude at 6'1", with the limited vertical athleticism, obviously, that he has. He's obviously a quick player, a crafty player, but his ability to be at this high level of a scorer and an offensive engine at his size in the NBA, we're seeing how much harder and harder it's getting for these undersized guards to do things as the NBA just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that guy at 6'1", not like the greatest athlete by any means. He's fine as an athlete, but he is an unbelievable offensive talent, and he just looks like he's going to be a keeper. And he's on one of the best value contracts in the NBA, making like $8 or $10 million or something like that. He's going to get paid when his contract is up. But really impressive game from Peyton Pritchard offensively. But Nick Claxton, he did a good job on Jaylen Brown. I think the Nets overall did a pretty good job on the Celtics defensively up until that breakdown during overtime. But last thing I want to close this out on is Drake Powell and Yegor Dioman, two rookies who started in this game but did not play all that much. Jordy closed with Nolan Traore and some other guys over them. So why was that? What did we see from Drake and Yegor? I'll get into all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, I become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Brooklyn's double overtime loss to the Boston Celtics. I want to close it out talking about Drake Powell and Yegor Dioman, two guys who have been the Nets starting backcourt. Those rookies have made up the Nets starting backcourt for the last 5 or 6 games that they've both been available, and they didn't play all that much in this game. And Jordy closed with Nolan Traore over Yegor Dioman at point guard, and also he closed with Zaire Williams over Drake Powell. And you look at Drake and Yegor in this game, Drake played 20 minutes, Yegor played 21 minutes, and they both had some really good flashes early. Like Yegor came out, he hit back-to-back threes. He hit a catch-and-shoot three, quick trigger. He hit a pull-up three against drop coverage. And then after that, we didn't see too much from Yegor. Yegor finished with 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 of 4 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. As I said, 21 minutes. So we didn't see too much from him. Drake Powell had 2 really nice early buckets. He was on the right wing on one. Jaylen Brown was giving him some space, which is something that we're seeing a lot of defenses doing in these recent games, kind of daring Drake to shoot. He pulled the trigger. He hit a 3. He had a possession right after that where he got the ball. He drove on Sam Hauser. He kind of did like a half spin, turnaround, fadeaway midi, drained it, plus the foul. So those were 2 very high-level offensive plays, but then didn't do much for the rest of the game. Drake finishes with 6 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, no turnovers. He was 2 of 3 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. So that was all we saw from those 2 guys. Like, I think you would like to see them playing a little bit more, But Yegor, after those 2 threes, it seems like he was just kind of floating through the game a little bit. Drake didn't really do too much. I thought that he, gave effort defensively, but it was just clear that Nolan was the guy that had it going as the game progressed. And Zaire Williams, I think that that's the more questionable decision. Jordy closed with Zaire. Zaire, I think his defensive effort has been superb in the last few games. And I think I know that's the reason that Jordy closed with him. I asked him about it after the game, and he said that he really liked what Zaire was doing defensively. But I will say that Jordy closed with Zaire in regulation. He stuck with him through both overtime periods. And Zaire was 4 of 15 from the field and 1 of 11 from 3 in this game. So I know he's doing some good things defensively, but I think that Drake Powell could give you a lot of the same things defensively. And if Zaire's 1 of 11 from 3, I mean, he could not throw a beach ball in the ocean tonight. I think you'd like to see Drake get some more minutes, and you'd like to see him get some clutch time experience. But I understand Jordy rewarding a guy in Zaire Williams who, in the past few games, some of these games where the Nets have just looked dead in the water, he has been the guy who has been giving effort and who has been, really trying to bring the intensity and make some opposing offenses uncomfortable. But I would say I think Drake Powell has also been doing that. So I would like to see Drake get some more minutes in this game, get some clutch time experience, but I do understand why Jordy closed with Zaire, even if I disagree with it a little bit. And Jordy said that he wasn't punishing Yegor or Drake. He said he thought that they both got, 20-plus minutes. Those were very valuable minutes against a good team in the Celtics, and I believe him when he says that. But I do think that, it is a competition. Like, you look at Yegor's competing with Nolan Traore for point guard minutes. Those guys have not played alongside each other very much, if at all, this season. Drake Powell is competing with a guy like Zaire Williams, and I asked Jordy if you'd like to see if there's anything more that he would like to see from those guys, and he said no, that he wasn't punishing. But I think specifically in Yegor's case, you just need to see more of an aggression. You need to see more of an impact. I know that he struggles getting downhill. Like, that's the difference between him and Nolan. Like, Yegor is the high-level three-point shooter. Nolan is the walking paint touch. And it's a lot more of a challenge for Yegor to get downhill. But I think that you need to see him press the issue a little bit more. I keep saying it with Yegor. The only way that you're going to get better at it is by continuing to do it. And, there just seems like there's times where he's just so resigned to the three-point line. And he has, like, a little bit of an opening to drive downhill, and he doesn't want to take it. And there was one where he did get downhill, and it looked like, off the pick and roll in this game, and it looked like he was going to get to the rim, lay it up, and he kind of dribbled down low. He tried to do like a wraparound pass, and he turns it over. So there's just a lot of room for improvement, and Yegor needs to get a lot better as a driver. And I think when he gains a little bit more strength, is able to get downhill more consistently and play more comfortable in the paint, that's going to open up his whole game. But that's going to be something that takes a lot of time. And, until he gets to that requisite level physically to be able to do some of that stuff, it's going to be harder for him, but you still need to see him try it. So that's where I'm at with Yegor. Other things that I want to talk about, not too much. I mean, Danny Wolf didn't do that much in this game. He played 18 minutes at 4 points, was 2 of 3 from the field, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, no turnovers. So fine performance from Danny. He didn't touch the ball that much offensively in that second unit. Nolan Traore had the ball a lot. Cam Thomas, I do want to just touch on Cam Thomas briefly, because I don't know what the Nets are doing with Cam Thomas. I mean, I know that maybe they feel like they have to play him because, they want to trade him at the deadline and they don't want to take him out of the rotation. But it's just so obvious that Cam Thomas doesn't want to be on the court right now. I mean, in this game, Cam had 7 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. He was 2 of 8 from the field. They had a play in the first half that I thought was really telling, where Danny Wolf got the ball. Cam got the ball. He passed it to Danny Wolf with like 10 seconds left on the shot clock. Danny tried to kind of like do a drive. He lost the ball. And instead of Cam being like near the top of the key engaged, he's standing out near half court. Danny throws him a grenade with 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Something we've seen Cam get a lot of grenades, get shots off, and make them throughout his career. Instead, he catches it standing completely upright. Doesn't even look like he thought about doing anything, and swings it to Zaire Williams with like 1 second left on the shot clock. And Zaire gets a shot blocked, and it's a turnover. And Jordy subbed him out right after that. And I think that play was just indicative of the lack of engagement that we've seen from Cam. And Cam it doesn't look like he wants to be out there. I mean, over his last, I think it is 9 games, he's something like 28 of 82 from the field or something like that. He's shooting 29% over his last 9 games. He's like 1 of 6 or 1 of 7 in his last 3 games, 2 of 8 tonight. It's ugly. I don't really know what they're gaining from playing out of him. I mean, it might actually be like a stealth tank move at this point, because they've been so much worse since he's come back. But I don't understand why they're playing him right now, honestly. Like, I understand if you're trying to move him in a trade. He's not doing anything to help his trade value right now. I can assure you that. And you have other guys like Terrence Mann didn't play in this game. Tyrese Martin. I mean, if I were a guy like Tyrese Martin, and Tyrese Martin has done all the things that the Nets have asked about of him. He's been, pretty impactful in stretches this season and last, and he's just a guy the Nets rave about. And despite that, he's sitting on the bench getting DNP CDs while Cam Thomas is out there not looking like he wants to be out there and just kind of stinking up the joint. So I don't understand it. And if I were a guy like Tyrese, I would be frustrated. I don't think that he's going to cause any problems because he's a good locker room guy and he's a professional. But, if I were him, it would be really frustrating to watch. If I were Terrence Mann, it would be really frustrating to watch to be getting DNP CDs while Cam Thomas is out there doing this. So the Cam Thomas situation probably going to resolve itself in the next 2 weeks because we're under 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. But this was another ugly and uninspired performance from Cam. That's all I got for you guys on today's episode of Locked On Nets. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy my content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you could do to engage is much appreciated. But the Nets are departing for a 5-game road trip. They're going to be back in action on Sunday, so I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.